Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Dekalb Preparatory Academy's monthly governing board meeting. Today is October 24th. It is now 6:34 p.m. Before we begin this meeting, I would like to thank the members of our community who are currently in attendance, and I will now officially call this meeting to order at 6:34. Let's have the approval, first, let's ascertain a quorum, beginning with myself, Suzette Arnold.
Roberta Walker.
Lenise Bostic.
Wanda McKay.
Bridget Robinson.
Kathy Ann Young.
Thank you very much. We do have a quorum this evening, so may I have the approval of the agenda for the quorum available?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
There's a motion on the floor for the approval of this evening's agenda as presenting. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, the agenda for this evening is approved as presented. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. You should have had those minutes, but they are in your packet. May I have the approval of the minutes from our last meeting?
I move that we approve the minutes of our last meeting. That's the meeting from September.
I second that motion. I second that motion.
Before I move on to approving that meeting, there's a point of order. I need just some clarification, please. Should have been from September, but the date that's on here doesn't say September, so we need to clarify that. The meeting minutes say September. All right, thank you very much for that clarification. So now may I have the approval of the September minutes, please? And with one amendment to fix the date that's recorded in the minutes we have in front of us. May I have the motion?
Actually, those minutes are from they're not the minutes from the September meeting.
Thank you for clarity. So we will then have to have those minutes posted next month. So I will move past this item on the agenda. I know the minutes are available, they're just not the one presented here. All right, so we'll have those minutes approved in our next meeting. Moving on to, can we just have that noted in our notes, please? That the minutes will be approved in the next meeting. Thank you. Let's move on to the next item in our agenda, the head of school report. Dr. Bostic, please move.
Good evening. If you could follow along with the PowerPoint presentation that you have printed out for you. We are working on the technical challenges that we have to display at this time, but I will talk through it. I do want to start off by saying congratulations to our employees that were designated Employee of the Month. Mr. Choi F. Franklin, who is our fabulous office manager, and Employee for the Month for August is Ms. Ward. Ms. Ward. And so thank you very much, our kindergarten teacher, for Employees of the Month. We also had a fabulous week of homecoming activities for DPA. It was a wonderful time, and we did crown a king and queen of DPA. And so you can see the picture for Mr. Montrez Holloway and Miss Kosobi Stevens, our king and queen. It was a wonderful event, very well organized, and the royal court is as follows, as listed on the slide. So it was a wonderful program. We had a lot of parents come out and visit the school and see us celebrate. So it was just a wonderful time. I want to thank the committee that worked so diligently to ensure that that was a positive event for all. So we have a few October highlights. It's the homecoming week. You can see the 70s day from the different grade levels, and I know those and the teachers as well. I know those were some outfits that we just wore regularly, but now it's become a day during homecoming. And then we had a homecoming parade and rally. We also had our second annual breast cancer awareness tea on a Saturday, and it was just a beautiful event. You can see the pictures from that. And then we also had students saying no bullying or drugs pledge. And so that Red Ribbon Week also was a wonderful addition to our programming, in addition to the teaching and learning that happens every day. The saying no to drugs is definitely, and bullying is definitely at the forefront of our minds as well. And then we had the Caught Reading at Breakfast event, and Pancakes and Pajamas, AR and Mayon reading kickoff. This is our kickoff where we were encouraging all of our students to read as much as possible, and so we had them get comfy in their pajamas and read a book, and then they also had breakfast. And so then we also had an international food tasting, and this is just additional pictures of the pancakes and breakfast. All right, and then you can go into our teaching and learning portion of it, where you see Earth and Space Science. Mr. Vassell had a very nice performance task regarding the planets, and they were able to articulate what planet was, what the planet was, and how it affects the Earth, and how it also interacts with each other. And then they had a wonderful project, culminating project. Then they had, fifth grade had an experiment and performance task dealing with the Earth and the causes of constructive and deconstructive processes. And then you can see the other experiments we had within fifth grade. And then in eighth grade, they demonstrated how exthermic chemical reactions generate heat. And so that was all a very exciting day for our students in science. And then we had a final science night where parents were able to come and learn all about science and how we teach and involve science in our project-based learning units within DPA. Then we had a wonderful event, Donuts for Dads, where we had over about 75 dads come, and so much so that we ran out of donuts. And so we are actually going to be doing this event again so that we can do it really far up for our dads and make sure that they know that they are very appreciated, and they definitely show up. So we're going to be having that event again with additional donuts and a little bit more for our dads since they showed up this first time. And so then we have Volunteers on the Move. In November, we have upcoming, our November 7th is a professional learning day where our students will be engaged in activities at home, and the teachers will have their second professional learning day here at DPA. So we're looking forward to planning that, and we had a wonderful first professional planning day that went over extremely well with our teachers and faculty, and so we're going to be doing the same thing as well for our students here. All right, so we have upcoming November activities, our Parent University Writing Workshop, Thanksgiving Luncheon, National Junior Beta Club Induction. All right, and so in October highlights, we also have the PSAT for 8th grade students, and then also in November, we have COGAT testing for our gifted and talented students, and project-based learning tasks will continue. All right, at the beginning of this school year, we took the MAP Fall Assessment, and the MAP Fall Assessment data is now also showed on this slide. We want to talk about the past 3 years where we have been and compare ourselves to where we are now. So you can see on the slide that has the last the achievement of all students. But then I'm going to go into, if you turn to slide 35, we'll talk about the MAP data. So 494 students were tested. More than 60% of the students scored in the 40th percentile or less. And so this is mainly thought of as the pretest for our students. And so this kind of shows where they are at the beginning of the year and what we can do to ensure that they are learning. And with MAP, we get personalized plans for our students, so we're able to then see how we can teach them and where we can fill those gaps in, and then also excel. Thank you. Okay. And so now the MAP Fall Data 22, that was 2021. This is Fall Data 2022 at the bottom. And you can see the trend. More than 50% of our students scored in the 40th percentile. All right, so now the CCRPI data, and that's kind of just where our students are as far as our school demographics. And now we're getting into where we are now. So MAP Fall 2023, we have 513 students that were tested. More than 50% overall of our students scored in the 40th percentile or lower. And so you can see the distribution of scores. 33% scored in red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. All right, so now we'll go by grade level. Our fall MAP reading grade level, our fall MAP reading data for reading in kindergarten grade level. And I know it seems odd to start kindergartners off by taking our MAP scores, our MAP test at the beginning of their first coming to school. However, it is getting them prepared and helping us learn where they are. And do they have one-to-one hand correspondence? Are they able to sit and attend to tasks for a certain amount of time? It really gives us a lot of good information, anecdotal information about how they learn, not only how they take tests, but actually how they engage in the test and how they engage in just being in a classroom. 22% of the students are in the 40th percentile or lower. 46% of the students are in the 80th percentile or higher, and 3 out of 19 students in the 60th percentile are 2 points or less from the 80th percentile. And our goal is we want all of our students to be in that 80th percentile range, and so we look and target our students and group them according to how their scores come out, and that helps us give us a good picture of where they are. So that's kindergarten reading. First grade reading is as follows. 36% of the students are in the 40th percentile or less. 38% of the students are in the 80th percentile or more. And 3 out of 14 students in the 60th percentile are 2 points less or less from the 80th percentile. So now we'll go into kindergarten math. And you can see the distribution of scores as follows. 30% of our students are in the 40th percentile or less. 42% of the students are in the 80th percentile or higher. And 5 out of 16 students in the 60th percentile are 2 points or less from the 80th percentile. And now second grade reading. 52% of the students scored in the 40th percentile or lower. 31% of the students scored in the 80th percentile or higher, 80% or higher. 3 out of 13 students are in the 60th percentile or 2 or less points from the 80th percentile. And here we have first grade math, where 31% of the students are in the 40th percentile or less. 53% of the students are in the 80th percentile or more. 4 out of 9 students in the 60th percentile are 2 points or less from the 80th percentile. And then we have second grade math. 45% of the students are in the 40th percentile or lower. 31% of the students are in 80% or higher. 3 out of 13 students in the 60th percentile are 2 or less points from the 80th percentile. And you can see the distribution of scores as follows. Then we have third grade reading. And the scores are as follows. 65% of the students are in the 40th percentile or lower. 25% of the students are in the 80th percentile or higher. And you can view the distribution of scores. In third grade math, 64% of the students are in the 40th percentile or lower. 19% of the students are in the 80th percentile or higher. And then you can see the distribution of scores. And as you can see the trend for math, and you can see how our students are having some challenges in math, and that is where we're putting extra resources in. Thank you again. Last month we approved the extracurriculars, and that included our tutoring program. And so we're building that out for our students so that we're not only looking and reaching our students that are scoring in that red area, but we're also looking at the students that are scoring in the yellow and green to provide additional support to ensure that they can not only meet the standard but exceed the standard. So now we're at fourth grade. Fourth grade reading, 50% of our students scored in the 40th percentile or less, and 20% of our students scored in the 80th percentile or higher. And then you can view the distribution of scores. And then again, fourth grade math, 63% of our students scored in the 40th percentile or less, and 21% of the students scored in the 80th percentile or higher. So now fifth grade reading, 59% of the students scored in the 40th percentile or less, 26% of the students scored in the 80th percentile or greater. And the distribution of scores are as follows. And now we're getting to fifth grade math. And you can see where we are. The 74% of our students scored in the 40th percentile or less, and 13% of the students scored in the 80th percentile or greater. And this tells me when we get to fifth grade math, that is a culmination of almost all of the elementary math that is required to be successful in our sixth grade math. So this is very telling for our teachers and for our administrators as to the level of support that we need for our students. And so we're able to, again, go back to our MAP scores and print out and look at individual students and find out what their gaps are, so we're able to differentiate the work and the assignments that we give to students, and we can differentiate that support. And that's going to be vitally important to see this gap change on future MAP tests. And so we're scheduled to take the MAP window again in December and early January. And so we'll now see how effective our teaching was for this first 2 9-week period. So then we'll be able to see how well did we address the standards with our students and how well did they grasp that and be able to demonstrate mastery or learning. And so we're looking forward to seeing where we are based off of the efforts that we've had thus far. This is sixth grade. Now we're at middle school. Sixth grade reading, 45% of our students scored in the 40th percentile or lower. 27% of our students scored in the 80th percentile or higher. And here is sixth grade math. And we're, again, this is an area where we have some challenges. 71% of the students scored in the 40th percentile or lower. 13% of the students scored in the 80th percentile or higher. So we are going to be distributing a lot of information about math and reading. But so parents, if you're listening, if you're online, if you're here, please be open and aware when we come and talk about our academics. So when we have our math night, when we have our academic night, you all are so very well engaged, and we want to continue to have you all engaged in the academic areas as well, so that we can see some growth in this, because we want all of our students to not only be performing at grade level, but above grade level. Seventh grade reading. 40% of our students scored in the 40th percentile or lower, 39% of our students scored in the 80th percentile or higher, and the distribution of scores are as follows. So you can kind of see the trend. As a school, we're stronger in ELA and reading than we are in math. And we have certain grade levels that are going to require more support than others. 7th grade math, 63% of our students scored in the 40th percentile or lower, and 19% of our students scored in the 80th percentile or higher. And our seniors in the building, 8th grade reading, is 44% of our students scored below grade level or developing, and 32% of our students score 80th percentile or higher, and this is also a GMAS or Georgia Milestones. All third through 8th grade grade levels are Georgia Milestones tested. Okay. And so 8th grade math is 50% of the students score below grade level, and 26% of the students scored in the developing for 8th grade math, and the distribution of scores are as follows. Okay, so that concludes the MAP assessments, and this is just information, overall demographic information for our students. And so this is just the distribution of registered students, seats, and that are on the wait list. And as you see, our kindergarten, we have a large number of students on the wait list for kindergarten, and a large number of students wait list for our 6th grade, which is kind of our gateway grades. And so we have an overall enrollment of 555 students. And so this is just an overall update for October. Our pre-evaluations are being completed. Grade level meetings and evaluations are started. We've also had Principals Academy. Our principals have been engaged in the Principal Center at Georgia State University, so they're able to now go with other first-year principals and learn strategies and just really get a really good perspective on overall how to run a school from Georgia State, from the professionals there. I also engaged in that my first 2 years as a principal, and I found it very helpful. And so we also had some operational highlights. We had a school safety walkthrough where we did score a 100. So kudos to the school and staff for doing that. Yes, please clap. That is wonderful news. And we were very proud for that walkthrough from Dekalb and to get that kind of feedback. We've completed our fire drills. The water tower replacement is in process. The dumpsters that are at the front of the building will be moved to the rear of the school just to have an overall cleaner effect when we're coming up to the building. And so we're looking forward to that. And then the DPA, our website and video will be updated. They did come and we had our first video shoot, professional video shoot where they came, and it was wonderful. They're going to come back and get some additional footage for our school. And so that should be up and running shortly. And then information and technology. IT, along with external managed services, are continuously monitoring the school's infrastructure. We are installing the new server. They've been through several times to make sure that we're up and ready, and they've ordered the new server to install, so that is on its way. And then we have also upgraded our security system, our cameras. We are all going to be able to have access to the cameras, not only on just our computers and devices, but also our phones. And then also we're now labeling the cameras throughout the building so that it will be easily identifiable. Yes, that is also good. And at this time, that concludes the report for head of schools.
Thank you, Dr. Bostic. Are there any questions from the board before we open for discussion? Do you have any questions? Ms. Young, do you have any questions? All right, I have a few questions. Okay, so unfortunately, I could not see the school comparison, so the data was so small, I wasn't sure what was on the printed copy, so I couldn't see that document. It was hard hard for me to see, so I wasn't able to quickly garner what the actual high scores were, the proficiency scores were, because I couldn't see the table, so that I'm able to read the rest of this. But beyond that, I think as we were going through it, I was able to catch on. So this was good information, so thank you, because it gave me a sense of where our students are, but what I would hope that we can do next time is show where we fall next to our district and state.
Okay.
Because beating the odds what we're supposed to do as a charter is beat the district and the state. So having these numbers does not show me where we measure up against the district and the state to see if we are where we're supposed to be. So can you tell us?
Yes. You have additional scores, 2023 charter school end of grade summary. And so this, it looks like this. And so this is a list that was provided to us by Dekalb. And in this, they look at our end of grade scores, and that is the scores on our GMAS, and they look at the percentages of that, and they tell us where we are in comparison to DeKalb County and where we are compared to Georgia. And so this is what they're looking at when they are looking at our overall effectiveness. And I have included all of the charters and their scores, but I'm going to only go over DeKalb Preparatory Academy. So if you follow me down on the chart, it says DeKalb Preparatory Academy, and then against the third graders against the state. So Georgia, third graders in ELA, and this is the percent of students that scored proficient or higher, or the students that scored level 3 or 4 only on Georgia Milestone. So the percentage for the state for third grade ELA was 38.59. And the percentage for the state was 38.59. DeKalb was 31.74, and DPA was 27.59. For fourth grade, the state was 36.15. For DeKalb County, it was 30.24, and for DPA, it was 15.79. For fifth grade, for the state, it was 41.57. For DeKalb, fifth grade, it was 33.92. And for DPA, fifth grade, it was 25. For sixth grade, it was 39.21 for the state of Georgia. For DeKalb, sixth grade was 31.13. And for DeKalb Preparatory Academy, it was 32.86. So in sixth grade ELA, we did beat the county number, but we still fell a little bit short for the state. For seventh grade, it was 39.09% scored proficient or higher for the state of Georgia. DeKalb County, it was 39.64, and for DPA, it was 27.87. And for eighth grade ELA, it was 42.12 for the state. For the county, it was 35.72. And for DeKalb Preparatory, it was 23.64. And so that is in the area of ELA. In the area of math, for third grade, it was 45.58 in mathematics that scored proficient or higher. For DeKalb County, it was 33.79. And for DeKalb Preparatory, it was 18.97. For fourth grade in math, 45.70 for fourth grade. For DeKalb County, it was 33.94. And for DeKalb Preparatory, it was 8.77. For fifth grade, it was 37.37 for math. DeKalb County for fifth grade was 25.32. And for DeKalb Preparatory, it was 5. For sixth grade, it was 32.86 for math for scoring 3 or higher. For DeKalb County for sixth grade, it was 19.68. And for sixth grade for DPA was 15.94. For seventh grade, it was 34.9% in math for Georgia, the state of Georgia. DeKalb County for seventh grade was 20.16, and for DeKalb Preparatory, it was 19.67. For eighth grade, for the state, it was 36.19. For DeKalb County, it was 23.44, and for DeKalb Preparatory, it was 14.55. And so you can see where we compare with DeKalb County and with Georgia. And so we do have our work cut out for us as far as academics in the area of ELA and math. And we're addressing that by professional development, our lesson planning. Our principals have started meeting with our teachers during in small group sessions and settings where they're planning with them our lessons and our overall academic focus. And they're now also using and utilizing some state resources that are on the state website. And we're also going to be looking at some of our formative assessments and the resources for our formative assessments coming up. And so that's coming up next month in our academic meeting. And if you turn the page one more time, there is writing data for third grade and for our all grades and for our students. And you can just look at that. It kind of breaks down how our students scored on writing that led up to that ELA score. So a lot of our students read proficiently and do well. However, their writing is not up to par where it comes to answering the prompt or providing a correct response or even writing anything. And so that comes, and we're addressing that by having our writers workshop for parents on November 17th that I alluded in my, earlier in my report. And we're going to talk to our parents, and then we're also going to provide professional development for our teachers on just strategies to help our students address the prompt, read the prompt, address the prompt, and then write and respond appropriately to that.
Thank you, Dr. Bostic, for presenting this additional information that brings clarity. I mean, what it says to me is that as I'm looking at the data, I'm thinking about the students who were in the previous year and thinking about where they were in a cohort during those COVID years and where they are now, and what the amount of work that we have to do to pull them back to where they need to be. So let us know what kind of support we have to provide to get those students back to where they need to be, because this is what tells us really how much work our teachers need in addition to the work they need to do with their students. So when I see these scores, I know there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. So thank you for sharing that. The writing I'm saying situation, please pardon my expression for that, but this particular issue concerns me simply because of the impact that it has beyond grade school. There are rules we have in our environment that says when you get to 18 years old and you go to exercise your franchise in a way that exercises your democracy, if you can't write or if your signature doesn't appear the same way twice, that is taken from you. And so this writing issue is a serious issue for me. So I would like for us to be very deliberate in how we address this writing issue and lean into that to have our children understand the importance of legible writing because of the impact it has on their future beyond middle and high school. So I appreciate you taking the time to go through that data, and I'm hoping that by the time you give us the next report, when we make these comparisons, that we would have shown some progress.
Madam Chairman, may I? Oh, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
May I make a statement about the data?
Sure, go ahead.
Again, Dr. Bostic, thank you for providing the GMAS data from last year and then the MAP data from this year. I just want to name, when we are looking and analyzing the two data sets, that we should be looking at the previous grade level when we're comparing. So, for example, if we're looking at the sixth grade end of year, or the fifth grade end of year milestone scores, when we're looking at MAP, we should be looking at the sixth grade scores.
Okay, got it, okay.
Yes, she's absolutely correct. So this is what we call lagging data, what I just presented about the Georgia milestones, because that was last year. So those students that took that test last year, those fourth grade students are now our fifth grade students in the MAP data. So when we look at it, we're looking at where did our students fall from last year. So are we really looking at our eighth grader scores right now on GMAS? Not really, because they're in high school now. So now, but we are leaning into our seventh grade scores and our fifth grade and sixth grade and seeing where they are. And so you see it starts at third grade as far as just Georgia milestones, but we can look at our MAP scores from last year and see where our kindergarten through second graders, where they were, and if they made growth last year, how much growth, which teachers were successful in gaining the most growth. And so we're leaning into that heavily as far as when we're looking at data and analyzing our data for our school.
Is there any way you can track a particular cohort, those that are on the lower side of the spectrum, to see where they are before and how we're tracking them moving forward?
Absolutely.
So that we can provide, and can the board get that information?
Yes, absolutely. So I want to thank the board again. In August, you all approved Illuminate and purchasing Illuminate for the school at, I think it was a buyback from Dekalb County. But in that Illuminate, we can build cohorts and we can track them. We can track attendance. We can track a lot of things. We just have to build those out to actually build it. And now that we have map data, we're able to really look at our school in a different way, in different ways. And so I can absolutely have that visual, they call them visualizations, and we can present visualizations to the board and to parents during parent conferences. The teachers have access to Illuminate. They haven't been trained on it yet, but that's upcoming. But so yes, absolutely, we can provide that and track our students in those different ways.
Okay. Would it be unreasonable to ask for this in January, just to let us end the calendar year and then collate the data and then look where we are, and then in the next quarter, kind of see where we are leading up to the end of the school year?
So yes and no. So I want to defer to Dr. Merritt. The second map data, I know we're starting in December and we're ending in January. What date are we ending in January? Okay. Okay, so I think February would be more reasonable, because then we'll have beginning of the year map data, middle of the year map data, and end of year Georgia milestones data. So then we'll be able to see clearly if the cohorts are moving in a positive direction or if they're not, and that's what we look at to make sure that our students are learning.
Got it, okay, thank you. All right, so I'm done with, are there any other questions? Yes, please go ahead.
Dr. Bostic, thank you. I know this data shows math and ELA, and I know we were talking about and we were looking at Georgia milestone scores. Knowing that ELA correlates across all contents and math specifically with science, and with 8th grade having to pass all 4 contents for Georgia milestones, is there a plan in place to help support or evaluate where our 8th graders currently are with their science and social studies standards and skills?
So thank you for the question. Yes, there is, we've discussed, it's called, they're Georgia State Assesslets, and that is actually what many school districts around use for their formative assessments. And so, and that is coming up in our next month's academic meeting, how we're going to build out our formative assessments, which you might have called or heard as benchmarks or universal screeners, or just all those, they come with it. So the Georgia State Assesslets is a company for Georgia, comes out of Georgia State University, no, not Georgia State, I'm sorry, Georgia, UGA, thank you, UGA Assesslets. But one thing that they do that's very interesting, they not only, you know how you usually have a question, they have A, B, C, D as the answer choice? Well, they not only give you the answer, C is the correct answer, but then they go back and say, A, if a child chose A, this is a misconception that most likely led to them choosing A, which is a whole different way for us to differentiate learning. And so they have that for all of the content areas. And so then we're able to now better glean, and they've partnered with Georgia, the state of Georgia, to actually use as some of our Georgia milestones assessment questions. So this is going to be really powerful practice, not only for our teachers to learn what the misconceptions are so that they can teach around that, because that's going to inform their teaching, but then also our students, so then they can clear up their own misconceptions once we do our data analysis or atom analysis based off those tests. So that's the plan, is really building out our formative assessments and how the teachers are going to use that data to inform their instruction. That's what we're using in all the content areas moving forward.
Thank you.
All right. Let me follow through with just a couple more, and then we'll move on to our committee reports. I'm going back to the information page that talks about where we are with our number of students. I think we are at 555 based on what you've shown us. Can you tell us, in order for me to understand where we are really, can you tell us where we started versus where we are now? So how many students did we have at the beginning of the school year in comparison to what we have right now? Sorry.
I'm stumped. And so I would have to go back into our historical data. So I could look at just enrollment dates. Actually, I can look it up on Infinite Campus. If you want to table that for a second, I can look up that.
For a second.
Yeah.
I just want to see how many students did we lose, because that tells us, in that data, a couple of other things that we probably need to be aware of. So I just want to make sure that that's on our radar.
Okay.
So, while we do that, let's see, do I have any other questions? While you look that up, I just want to say thank you to the parent volunteers who showed up to work during homecoming, and the folks who volunteered for Donuts with Dads and all of the other programs that we had during the month of November. We appreciate your time and your service to our school. And to all the parent volunteers who take their time and dedicate to the school, we understand how important it is for your time and your efforts to focus on providing an enriching environment for our students along with our teachers. So thank you very much for that. I think I'm going to, Dr. Bostic, while you look for that, I am going to move on to the other items on our agenda while you do that, and go to our committee reports. And I want to make one point of order on our agenda, that committee reports are listed, but it didn't state which one, so I just want to say for the record which ones. So we'll start out with our academic report. So can we have Madam Chair, a report from the academic report?
Thank you. Good evening. The academic committee met on Tuesday, October 10th at 10 a.m. and we had several items on our agenda that were discussed, starting with the fact that we do have some vacancies in personnel in teaching, as well as paraprofessional vacancies. And we talked about the fact that we will consider, the school is considering changing the art teacher from art to STEAM to give our students an activity, as well as moving in the direction of science, technology, and engineering and mathematics. We also spoke about the after-school tutoring program, which is going to focus on math, and we talked about the reasons for the focus on the math as we went over the data in our committee meeting. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Bostic.
And thank you. And I do have the numbers for the first day of school. Okay. Do you want me to do the board recommendations first? Okay.
Tell it, I just want it on the record so we can see where we are.
Okay, so the first day of school, we had a total of 539 students enrolled, and now we're at 555.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank y'all. And so shout out to our fabulous registrar. Thank you. She has been calling and registering students nonstop. Okay, and so I would like a recommendation in Thank you. All right, so we have a special education position that is, that I'm proposing that we add to the organizational chart. We have a student that requires an IEP services with a one-on-one, and so that is going to add a paraprofessional to our organizational chart. And so while it was not approved in committee, we did discuss it within the committee, but, so I'm asking the board to consider the motion in this form. And it's under the academic tab.
So I'll make the motion. I move that we add the position of special education paraprofessional to our organization chart.
I second that motion.
There are no discussion or questions regarding this addition to the org chart from the board? Okay. Given the motion, may I have the approval of the motion for the addition of a special education paraprofessional added to our org chart in the amount of $35,000? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Did you vote? Yes. Okay. Did everyone vote? Okay. All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, the motion carries for the addition of the special education paraprofessional to be added to our org chart. And then now I think I need the motion for the approval of the person, correct?
Okay, I would,
I have.
you gonna, okay.
I move that we hire Bernadette Baker as in the paraprofessional position. The salary, including benefits, $51,306.48.
Okay, before that motion is approved, I want to be clear on the cost. The cost that I just mentioned does not equal the amount that was just made in this motion. So can we have a point of clarity, please?
So the cost for the paraprofessional, we said up to 35,000. That was without benefits, and we should have been without the benefits. And then with the new motion that's up for the actual person, that's including benefits.
Okay, so for the purpose of ensuring that we're properly supporting this position, we have to have the whole dollar amount for budget purposes. Otherwise, we don't know if it will be properly funded, and the board would have made an approval for something with not having clarity. So it's the amount that is supporting the special education position, the amount that is mentioned in the motion for that. If not, then I need the correction on the motion for the position that is being added to the org chart.
We would need the correction.
Pardon me?
We will need we need to do the correction then,
Correct.
because it's, we have 35,000 on the original first motion, but that does not include benefits, so we need to include the benefits in that motion.
Correct, and
Okay.
the new board action form will need to be updated and forwarded so that the action taken can be properly reflected.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, are we speaking of the special education paraprofessional is going to be the same as the paraprofessional? 'Cause,
Yeah.
on the action form, it says we put it on the R chart,
Correct.
special education paraprofessional.
Correct.
But on the second extra form, when we're approving the person, it just says Bernadette Baker, paraprofessional position. So she'll be the special education paraprofessional?
Correct, good catch. So there's a nuance there that it left off special education, so the board action form has to reflect that for the person, that the person is going to be performing in the role as a special education paraprofessional, because it doesn't clearly state that on the board action form. Thank you very much, Ms. McKay. So that board action form has to be updated so that the action that the board takes is clear. And so the motion needs to be represented in both spaces so that we can have clarity on the position and on the amount. All right, go ahead, please.
Do we know, based off of the data that was presented and then where kids are in our tier system, do you foresee additional paraprofessionals being added within this school year based on where kids are falling in that tier process?
So it's difficult to predict whether we're going to need a paraprofessional, because the paraprofessional, special education paraprofessional, is an IEP team decision, and that's based off of individual child's data, the progress monitoring with that child, and so that's an individual child's decision. So it's hard to predict that. However, we will always take as much help as possible. That always. So I can definitely fill in some more spaces if that's the board's pleasure.
Madam Chair, but this particular para is just is because we have a student who requires a one-on-one situation. So having other students who fall into special education won't necessarily mean that we need to add additional paras. It's just that this particular situation merits that.
Right, so we have to provide the services for that
Right.
child, legally
Right.
for that
Yes.
child. Okay, understood.
Correct.
So let's go back to then approving the position.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I move that we approve the addition of a special education paraprofessional for the amount of $51,306.48.
I second that motion.
Okay, and for clarity, the motion on the floor is to amend the previous motion to correct that we are approving the hire of a special education paraprofessional to be added to our org chart with a cost supporting that role of $51,306.48. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, the motion carries to add the position of a special education paraprofessional in support of the one student we have in our family that needs IEP support. Can we now have the approval of the person?
I move that we approve the hire of Bernadette Baker as special education paraprofessional. The cost, benefits, and salary, $51,306.48.
Okay, hold on one moment. There's a point of clarity, Dr. Bostic. I have a question from a board member. Question about backup documentation and the person who's being approved versus what's in the backup documentation.
Oh, no, I have two this year.
So
So you should,
they're only going by what they've seen.
okay. So you should have 2 interview score systems for 2 candidates, and then you should have the resume and the resume as well as the GACE score for the candidate that was chosen. I have a full packet. If you do not have the full packet, I can pass my full packet down.
Thank you, Dr. Bostic, we're good. Okay. Returning to the motion, can we have a second to that motion? Was there a second to the motion? We had an interruption, so I want to make sure that we close this loop. There was a motion made. Now, is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you very much. There's a motion on the floor for the approval of the special education paraprofessional, Ms. Bernadette Baker, thank you very much, in the amount of $51,306.48. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, the motion carries for the hire of the special education paraprofessional. I would also like to say on the record that the expectation is that the amended board action forms be updated and presented to the board accordingly. Thank you. Any other items, Dr. Bostic?
No, I do not have any further items.
Okay. If there are no other items from, related to academics, then let's move on to the next committee report. Oh, thank you very much, Ms. Roberta. The board will then accept the report presented by the academic committee as presented. Thank you very much. And the board should also accept the, I should ask, is the board going to accept the academic report as presented by the academic committee? Yes, that's a yes, okay. And will the board accept the head of school report as presented by the head of school? All right, so on the record, the board accepts both reports from the head of school and the academic committee. Okay, the next report coming from committee would be that of Finance Committee. In the absence of our treasurer, I know there was a meeting, not a meeting, an official meeting, but there was some conversation. Dr. Bostic, would you like to share with the board?
Yes, and so we did have our discussion with the board treasurer and myself during our normal committee time, where we discussed our application for reauthorization, and we discussed the data that was going into that application. And so I've given you just the copy of what those budgets look like. There's a 5-year budget projection, along with, and if you toggle through the pages, you'll see the cash flow projections as well. And I understand, I know it's a lot of data and a lot of numbers, but basically it's just going over what we predict will be our budget for year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5, and how those will change based on the revenues that we received and based off of anticipated expenses. And so we were able to use parts of our current budget to create this budget. Our interim, our CFO, Ms. Candy, was able to use that information to create this document. And so we went over this document with, and had a lot of discussion around that. And one of the things that was suggested is looking at our cash balance and using that to maybe think about some capital improvements that we could do around the building. And so I took that back to the admin team, or the executive admin team, and to think about different things that we could present to the board so that we can just capital improvements being like maybe the media center, or the bathrooms throughout the entire building, or the playground equipment, or the gym. And so those are some of the suggestions that we just kind of brainstormed. So we're fleshing out those ideas, as well as our new issue that just came up, or new challenge that just came up, the water heater. I think that's the name of it, the water heater. So we'll be looking at some of those capital improvements to make recommendations to the board as suggested by the board treasurer.
Are there any questions?
I know that, and thank you for this information, and I know that you and your team have worked really hard in getting Canvas and other multimedia and technology to help support with some of the deficits and some of the data that was shown. So shine to you for that. I was noticing at the computer projection, I know it is a need to help support with these academic plans and growth, to have 100% of students with a one-to-one computer. and I know it was named that we've grown and we've improved and we're at a 1 or 2. Do we know what a projected cost would be if every student at DPA received a computer?
I can determine that, and if someone could do the math for me, Dr. Merritt, it's 323 times 555. And so that's if everyone got a new computer, not including insurance and any of the other ancillary things like like the bag that it would go in. We would have to build that out, but we can get a quote for that. We currently do have planned within our Title I program for this year, our Title I budget, the purchase of additional computers. And so we're assessing exactly where we are now. We now have a full inventory of computers of where we are now, so we know how many computers we have that are working, that are not working, and that we need to surplus and that we can keep and use, and the carts to go along with them. And so we will be making some plans to ensure that we move to that 1-to-1. I think that is the desire of the school, the parents, and the board that I've heard. But I do think we need to shore up our asset management system to ensure that when we get them in, that we have a clear plan of where everyone is and whichever computer is, and then also looking at the how we're going to ask our parents to contribute, and if we're going to ask them to contribute to the insurance part of it, so that we can always have a good plan in place to make sure that they're always working, because they're children and things happen with children, so we know they're going to break, we know they're going to need to be serviced, but having a plan in place. So we're looking at other districts and how they do it. Dekalb has done it, Rockdale has done it, Newton has done it, there's Fulton County has done it, and Atlanta Public Schools has done it. So we need to look at some of them to kind of glean from their shines and grows and some of their mistakes and learn from them as we implement our own 1-to-1 program.
Okay, thank you for that question. In an effort to have full transparency with the board, I mean, I know you and I, Dr. Bostic, have had some conversations around finance as it relates to where we are in terms of fiscal prudence, but I just want to make sure that that information is disseminated among all of us as board members. So I just want to touch on a couple points that are financial related. Can you give us a quick update on the accountability report?
So the accountability report was included in the overall application for the rechartering document, and so that was sent out and disseminated when we sent out the original rechartering draft document. That document, the accountability report, was included in that. But I can resend just the accountability report if you would like to see that.
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
So that all board members can be familiar with that document and where we are financially.
Okay.
Can you also give us an update? You did, just in case some people missed it, our charter renewal.
Yes, so our charter renewal was turned in on time, and we got one feedback email that asked us to do a couple of additional items, and that was due by the next day, and we were able to turn that in on time as well.
All right, and then our audit.
Our audit is up and running and moving forward. We are waiting on one additional piece to get turned into the auditor, and that is, again, with the asset management system. It was just basically the audit, the capital asset report, and which is basically a list of all of the things that we've bought over since our opening. And so that document had to be recreated, and so I've pulled all the documents that I've had of all the inventories. So I want to thank the board members that were able to send me a lot of those documents, and some of the teachers were sending me documents, and some of the former people, I had to go through some of their old emails to get some of those documents, and so we're compiling that now to give to the auditor, and we're hopeful that he'll be able to finish. So that is the last piece that he needs to be able to give a final audit, a completed audit to us.
Okay, and just for the record, so all board members are aware, the audit is due
November 1st.
November 1st. That's
It's the audit. We have several important dates that are coming up rather quickly. November 1st is the audit report. The annual report as well is due on November 1st. And then we have our board capacity interview for the rechartering application, and that's on October 31st.
So I just want to, for the record, make sure that all board members are aware of those dates, keep them on their calendars, because the accountability for those reports that are submitted, even though they're submitted by the school, rests with the board. So the annual report, the audit, and the
Accountability.
charter interview is
Yeah.
on October 31st at 12:30 PM. All board members must be present for that interview. No one can miss it. Everybody has to be there. That's the the board capacity interviews, which means DeKalb County sits down and asks us all questions related to our school and, things that we've been doing as a board. So we can't miss that meeting.
So if we could all plan to be on maybe around 12:20-ish, around there, so that we can just make sure our equipment works and make sure we have everything and mics open and working, because I know they want to start, it's a hard start at 12:30.
Okay. Yes,
So it is via Teams. It's via Teams. It's in one, yeah, everyone will be on the Teams meeting, and so, and it's a hard start at 12:30.
Did we decide on a date? This is for board members now. On the date we will meet to go through the,
So I've gotten several feedback for either this Thursday or Friday, and so, I just need a final determination for everybody.
Thursday? I'm open, so you guys let me know what this works. What day works for you? Ms. McKay, what day works?
Hold on, I want to make sure I'm saying the right dates.
The time?
It'll be in the evening after 5.
No.
No, it's gonna,
virtual.
yeah, it's be virtual.
6 o'clock? 6?
On the 20, on Thursday, the 26th?
Thursday the 26th, 6 PM.
Hold on, let me make sure.
Okay.
I'm making sure that date will work.
The audit is also due on the 1st. The capacity
Yes.
interview is on the 31st, and the mock interview is on Thursday, October 26th at 6 PM.
10/26 at 6 p.m.
And
Okay,
that's for all board members.
and that's all board members, yes.
Correct. Okay. And it is virtual.
Teams or Zoom?
I will email that out to you all. I'm not sure what she's going to set up. She's also done Google Meets at some time, so I'll see what platform she's going to use. It'll be led by Ms. Falco.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bostic, for that. I don't think I have any more questions relative to finance right now, except that I will note that we do not have a financial report that is being presented to the board because there was not an official meeting.
Correct,
But the intentions is that we will have that in the next meeting.
correct.
Okay.
So we'll be going over financials for actually maybe several months of financials, just to make sure that we're all on the same page as where we led up to this. But I do have one board action from the Finance Committee, if we could consider that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so this is the interim principal, the compensation. So in the August board meeting, we adjusted the interim or the principal pay scale. And so in the interim, we had an interim principal that was paid on the old pay scale. And so this is the gap for those 2 months, August and September, for the interim principal to adjust that pay to go with the new pay scale that we were paying, compensating the principals. And so it's in the amount of $4,618.38. And I'm asking the board to entertain a motion to,
So there was no official committee meeting. I suspect that the treasurer knew about this.
correct.
Okay, and so the question would be, what is the board's pleasure for this particular action that is being presented to the board? But before the board responds to that, Dr. Bostic, we don't see backup information that shows what the current salary is, what the addition will be, so that there's clarity around where the salary is going.
Okay.
And how that kind of information helps us to see what we're doing in the decision-making. If you just give us one number, we don't know what the number, where we're coming from, where we're going to, how we're gonna support that moving forward. We have to make sure that we can support this until the change is made, right? So do we have the funding to support it? Is there money available to support it?
Okay,
And I don't see that in a spreadsheet in front of us to help us make that decision.
okay,
I'm
I
not saying
can,
that the board won't approve it, I'm just saying it would be helpful for us to kind of have some information to guide us in the decision-making.
Thank you for that. This is a one-time cost, and so this is not an ongoing cost. This is just a fixed for 2 months for August and September for the time that was served in that. So this is a one-time cost of $4,618.38.
Okay. What is the board's pleasure? One person says they doesn't comfortable with it. All right, so can I have a motion for the approval of the one-time cost of $4,618.38 for the interim principal incentive to cover the
Compensation.
Compensation.
compensation to cover the period of 2 months while serving in the interim position. May I have that motion, please?
I move that we approve the interim principal compensation amount of $4,618.38.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you very much. There's a motion on the floor for the approval of the compensation request for the interim principal for a one-time amount of $4,618.38 for the period of 2 months. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, the motion carries. The request is approved.
Thank you. And I do have one more that was discussed in our meeting, and it was regarding the recommendation to enter into a agreement with ADP Total Source for the position of Human Resource Services. That actual board action form is behind Governance tab. And this is the motion, the second time this motion is coming forward. I presented it last month as well, and the board asked to find one more quote, and I did, and we went through that with the board treasurer, and she agreed with the recommendation and asked me to present. And so I am now presenting. This is information regarding the Human Resource Services. And so basically we are currently with ADP, but now this is moving to a different plan within ADP that's called Total Source, and they're going to be providing additional benefits in the human resource area for our school. And the cost is a little bit different because of what they're asking, the benefits that they're going to be providing. And so the benefits that they're providing goes along with payroll processing, HR technology around onboarding, and then engagement with this, with our employees. So our employees will now have a 24-hour access number for benefits and managing their benefits. If they have questions about their benefits, if they have to go to the hospital in the middle of the night, they don't have to ask or wait into the morning to get questions. They can actually call the 24-hour number. So this just increases the level of service in the human resources area that we can do for all of our employees. And as you know, that we did have Ms. Simpson, our wonderful bookkeeper slash accountant slash everything else in the world, office manager slash everything. She was promoted to the CFO position at another school. And so this position has been left vacant for the last 3 weeks, and we definitely feel that. And this would fill that void. And so I'm asking the board to consider this recommendation. We did have the option with this quote with ADP to go to a different service provider for our benefits. However, after discussing with the board treasurer, we're going to end up staying with the current Kaiser Permanente, and then next year, if we're able to get into the state health benefit plan, then we'll move forward with actually changing some of the health benefits options for our employees. But right now, everything will remain the same. The only thing that will increase is the level of customer service around human resources.
Okay. So is it the board's pleasure to approve the action for remaining with the same provider and to increase the cost of service, to include additional services for the amount of $104,011.00? Are there questions around the request? Do you have any questions? Ms. Young, you have no questions? Okay. In the absence of questions, can we move on to the decision-making and have a motion from the board for their approval? Okay. Somebody gonna make a motion?
I motion for the approval of the ADP total source for the provision of human resources for, in the amount of $104,000.
I second the motion.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor for the ADP total source for the provision of human resource services in the amount of $104,011.00. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, the motion carries for the approval of increasing the services that are provided by ADP to increase, with an increased cost of $104,011. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much for considering that and passing that. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Bostic, we have one more committee report, and then I think we can open our, yes, ma'am. Certainly. Go ahead, please.
Dr. Bostic, on the projection chart, under the expenses for athletic and extracurricular coaches, the amount is 0. Does that not line up with the stipend that we passed last month?
It's under the expenses category, about 4 or 5 lines down from the top, where it says personnel.
It's the athletic and extracurricular coaches.
6 lines down, sorry.
Okay, so yes, I do see that. And no, that does not line up with what we just passed. So that would have to be adjusted. We'd have to adjust that.
I have a question about that. Do we have on staff athletics?
So we have
That's-
two,
We have 2 PE teachers, and
Correct.
they are in the org chart.
Correct.
But would that fall under athletics and extracurricular?
But we have the coaches, the football coaches and the basketball coaches. Does that fall under there? And then-
so I'm wondering and I'm not near an expert at this yet, but I am wondering because they're already captured in teachers, and they're not from outside, they're already captured in the teacher number, if that was not, if that's why they were not captured in this. But that is something I'm gonna have to ask for clarity on to include. So I do have that noted to follow up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Are there any other questions from the board? Thank you for that question, Ms. Young. Can I have a report from our governance committee? I know governance committee is getting ready to be pulled together along with the development committee. If there was no meeting, then you just simply state there was no meeting.
There was no meeting for governance this month.
Thank you. And from our development committee?
There was no meeting for
All right.
development.
Thank you very much. This then moves us to the next item on our agenda, which is our public comment period. If there are stakeholders in our presence online or in the room who would like to address the board at this time, please do so. Please state your name and come to the microphone, please. So that we can address you appropriately and so that your questions, if you do have them, can be, you can get a response from our school leader.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Nicole Brundage. My son is a fourth grade student at this school. His name is Michael Dukes Jr. I have a question regarding I have a lot of questions, but one of them is regarding the academics of the fourth grade. I know that they are affected by COVID, but I also know they had a very difficult year in third grade. They're having an even more difficult year in fourth grade with issues with teachers, with academics, and behavior issues. And it's to the point to where I'm really going to withdraw my son. And so are a lot of other parents in the fourth grade. And I know this is a bigger issue, but it really needs to be addressed like yesterday. We had to come down to the school because of an issue directly with a third grade teacher degrading fourth grade classes. And I've been working with Ms. Owens and Mr. Brown on addressing this, but it's just a small, it's like the tip of the iceberg. And I'm looking for some sort of direction and some sort of hope of what's going on, because if the teachers are doing this to the students, it is a direct correlation on what's going on with their scores on these tests and the day-to-day activities. You have some good teachers here. You have staff who care, but there are some that are just should be ashamed of themselves, and I mean ashamed and disgraced.
Thank you. May I respond?
Thank you for sharing your comment with the board. Dr. Bostic, if you care, we don't typically give a response.
Okay.
What we need is for the school to work with the parent directly
Absolutely.
and address those issues directly so the time can be committed and all those issues resolved, but we know we can't resolve them here in this meeting.
Yes, I just wanted to let the parent know, and I'm not sure if you did get the notice that we're having a fourth grade parent town hall meeting. I hear your concerns, and I've heard the concerns of the others, and we're going to address it within that forum together. And I'm asking if you would consider attending that forum so that we can speak freely again about your concerns and so that we can develop a plan together to address.
Yes, I will. We did receive the notice from Class Dojo while we're in this meeting. It's tomorrow at 10 a.m. over Zoom. I myself work for the University System of Georgia. I have a advisory board meeting tomorrow from 9 a.m. to noon, but I am going to work with my chair of my department so that I can be able to participate. But with the notice that we received, there may not be enough parents. Will there be another meeting? Because there are some drastic issues and it's not enough time for people to make those accommodations. I am fortunate to where my department, since I work for the university system, understands the importance of education and allowing me the flexibility to do what I need to do for my son. But there are a lot of parents who do not have that privilege.
Yes, ma'am. We will have additional meetings. I just felt the urgency of that and what had occurred and what I had learned. It dealt with means we need to have an urgent meeting with parents. And so, yes, but there will be other opportunities as well.
Thank you, and I agree with you, and I appreciate that. Thank you. But I just wanted to make it known to the board that there are some serious issues that need to be addressed. It's very serious issues. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Miss, did you say your name was Brenda? I know it's Nicole, last name?
Brundage?
Brandage.
Yes.
Yes, Miss Brandage. Thank you for your comment and for bringing this to our attention.
You're welcome.
Are there any other comments from our stakeholders? Hearing none, There's a comment from a board member.
I just wanted to say I am a parent, but I'm also a board member. My daughter has been here for almost 4 years, and I have not interacted with a staff member that did not treat my daughter like she is their own. I'm so sorry that you guys are experiencing issues, but looking for a school to send my daughter to was one of the biggest challenges for me. And when I drop her off here, I know that every single staff member here would not let anything happen to my daughter. And I'm very thankful that you are vocal, and I hope that we can come to a resolution that is fair. But I will say this community of staff members, the teachers, administration, they love our children. A lot of it is behavioral issues, and there are leadership issues that are being worked out, but they love our kids, and I've never had my daughter somewhere where I knew she was so cared about.
Thank you for sharing that, Ms. Young. We were moving to the next item on our agenda, hearing no further comments from our stakeholders. I just want to take a moment to ask the board if there are any other items they would like to discuss before we close for this evening's meeting. No, hearing none, I just want to point out one reminder that we do have some training that we have to get done through the Charter Schools Association, and these are virtual trainings. So Ayanna Clark may have sent you an email. Please go back through your emails and look out for that so you can do those board boosts. There are specific trainings that count your training hours, so you want to make sure that you're meeting those compliance hours. So everybody is required to do those trainings, so I just want to make sure that I remind everyone of that. All right, and just to reiterate, we have some important dates coming up. November 1st, we have 2 deadlines, the annual report and the audit. We also have the board capacity interview with Dekalb County on October 31st at 12:30 p.m. Can we join maybe 15 minutes before the actual time so that we can get acclimated with the environment, the technology, et cetera, so we can be ready for that meeting? And on the 26th of October, which is this week, we have a mock interview at 6 p.m. on the 26th. And I'm hoping that all of us will be available for that mock interview. All right, 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock. Point of correction, it's 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, everybody. Okay. All right. If there are no other items, may I have a motion for the adjournment of this evening's meeting?
It is now 8 o'clock, and I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I second that motion.
Thank you very much. There's a motion on the floor for the adjournment of this evening's meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, this meeting is officially adjourned. It is now 8:01 p.m. Thank you, everybody.